Hi, my name's Dan, and this is Charmains Nightmare, the story of how these events took place. This is the story of my little girl and how a dream life that I had for her, and she had with me early on, was shattered by government entities and their plight to seek possession of this innocent girl and destroyed her perceptions of her dad by their intentional deceit for reasons I will leave you as individuals to conclude from the facts and circumstances I now present to you. Charmaine was born August 22nd, 2005. We lived at 1459 South Ocean Drive in Jensen Beach, Florida. My business allowed me to be home all day and night. I was only out 2 to 3 hours a day. We grew close, and I was her hero and her idol, and she was my princess. However, after her third birthday, on October 14th, 1988, there was lights flashing in my window from my condo. There was police outside. I stepped outside to see what was going on. Sherry was passed out behind the wheel of a vehicle that had hit another one in the parking lot. She was awake, but police had told me that they were taking her to jail. I had no problem with this. I was tired of it. It had been going on for over a year. See, she wasn't like this when I married her. I took Charmaine into the house, gathered some things, and I left. I moved across the bridge onto the mainland in Jensen Beach. I called the Department of Children and Families that night to assist me to put enmity between my daughter and her, not to keep visitation away or hold her back, but as I went through the divorce, that I could protect her. After a week's investigation, a woman I only remember as Chrissy or Christy concluded that she could not file a petition in court, but she would try to do her best to informally help me. I had questions on this, but I didn't say anything to Sherry, my estranged wife, because it had no court order and had no force, and I was worried that it wouldn't help. And sure enough, within 3 days, she realized this and started all over again. My in-laws came over from Tampa to help me watch my daughter while I finished up some contracts, pleaded with me to please move to Tampa. And although they had problems with Sherry years ago, lost faith in her, they were reunifying based on our marriage and a child, but now had lost faith again. But we all still believe that Charmaine was entitled to a recovered mother. So we left and moved in early November 2008 to Tampa, Apollo Beach, to stay with them. I tried to build my business there and did the best I could in bouncing with the company subcontracting. In the process, Sherry was in and out of detoxes while we're trying to get her into rehab. She had human papillomavirus, which has precancerous cells, from what I understand. These, as the doctor said, intestines. This delayed her and stopped the rehabs from taking her in. I went to a court in late November with my in-laws to commit her under a Marchman Act to force rehab. She was willing to go, but I needed a court order because I thought maybe I could force a rehab to take her, even with these alleged cancer issues and all the multiple appointments each week. It failed. Each week we went, she wasn't in. She was being close to being held in contempt of court. Because I was responsible for starting this action and it wasn't happening, I needed more time to get her into rehab. So we went in and withdrew that petition while we waited before she was thrown in jail, because jail would not recover my daughter's mother. Only rehab would. So at that time, we kept struggling to survive and make it through this ordeal. Here, the story in Charmain's Nightmare begins. On January 24, 2009, sometime between 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I received a phone call on my way driving up I-75 in Tampa on my way home. And it was a deputy sheriff, and he said, "Mr. Sanctioned, you need to get here." He gave me the address. He says, "I have your wife and daughter here, and your wife is drunk, and you need to pick up your daughter and your wife." I got there and saw the ambulances on the scene, fire rescue, sheriff's deputies' cars everywhere. I walked up this driveway and approached the officer and told him, "Throw her in jail. She's on a $50,000 bond from the other coast." She's in my corporation, and she just has to call when she gets in trouble, and the bond will run when it checks the corporation. And that's what's happened. I said, please call DCF, because I called them in Stewart, Florida, for help. They're aware of her. He said, I can't arrest her. Nobody's seen her driving. She's on private property. It's a seasonal home. I can't even get her for trespassing. Public intoxication. There's nothing I can do, sir. I said, you have to help me. He had the idea, I'll Baker Act her, which is an act in Florida that allows officers to submit somebody into a hospital for psychological evaluation for 72 hours. He said, this will give you the time to revoke that bond. I said, thank you so much. And I took my daughter with Bob Sessa, a gentleman who was working with me at the time. And he drove us down to Apollo Beach, where I was staying with my in-laws. Approximately 9 o'clock that night, DCF workers showed up at the door with two deputy sheriffs from a branch office for Child Protective Services. These individuals are there about 3 hours interviewing Charmaine and myself. They were running in and out of the house on the phone in the car. At one point, I asked the DCF worker what was happening, what was with the phone calls. He said, do you know a woman named Chrissy, or Christy, from Stewart, Florida with DCF? I said, yes. He said, so she's really upset with you, and her and the Attorney General are trying to find a way to take this child from you tonight. And that's why this is taking so long. Well, approximately midnight or so that night, when he re-entered the final time, he handed me a summons and says, I'm taking Charmaine. At that point, Charmaine started crying and said, no, I'm safe with Daddy. I tried to hold it together, but I burst in tears myself. But I was still choking on it. And I hugged the sheriff. He said, I know you're only doing your job, but this is wrong. And I gave a hug to the DCF worker. And I said, I understand. I did this because I did understand they were doing their job. But it was wrong. And I also wanted Charmaine to be comforted that these might be friends. The next morning, I appeared in court at 7:30 a.m. in front of a judge. I don't remember his name. And the state was asked what happened by the court. And they presented the facts as I laid them out to you earlier, as they are in the police report from the scene. Sherry, a 911 call was placed at Sherry, or a woman was walking down Livingston Ave, or in that area wandering, disoriented. And that's what they found when they arrived. The judge said, give that child back to the father immediately. He's done nothing wrong. They said, but Your Honor, he knew. And the judge says, I don't want to hear it. 30 years on the bench. I will not tolerate this. You people are trying to do this all the time. I will not accept it. Give her back now. I was home about 10 o'clock in the morning.